So pretend that someone asked you how you're doing financially. What would you say? I mean, it's a simple question, but the answer depends on a variety of things. Do they mean like, are you net worth rich, or are you driving nice cars? Is your income high? Do you have a lot of debt? Inevitably, when you think about it, it forces you to consider how you measure financial wellness. So today is Net Worth Day. We're going to talk about net worth and why it is the best scorecard to measure financial wellness. We'll talk about how to calculate your own net worth, and we'll compare net worth by age, by your state, education, and a variety of other factors. Sometimes it's easy for me to view financial wellness kind of like physical wellness. Think about when you go to the doctor. Every time you go, they make you stand on a scale and they weigh you, they take your blood pressure. There's some vital information that they gather. It may be redundant, but I'm sure you'll agree it's a worthwhile practice. And the reason is your doctor needs a baseline from which to measure any changes that have occurred over time. After all, how can you make any recommendations or measure any progress or deterioration if he doesn't have a baseline to measure from? Financially, there are also some vitals that we can measure that give us a picture of our financial health. Some examples include debt, income, spending habits, cash flow, but more important than any of these is net worth. Okay, so what is net worth? Net worth is all of the assets a person or corporation owns minus any liabilities or debts they have. In plain English, net worth is how much money you'd have if you sold everything you own and paid off all your debts. And in my humble opinion, there isn't a more important measure of your overall financial health. And the reason is a lot of the vitals we referred to earlier, like debt, income, cash flow, they only give a partial picture of your overall financial wellness. But net worth tells the whole story. For example, you could have an income well into the six figures, but still have a negative net worth due to an overwhelming amount of debt. On the other hand, your income could be zero and you could be a multimillionaire. Which would you rather be? W-2 rich with a big income and a lot of debt, or W-2 poor with millions in the bank? And that's just part of the story. We all make assumptions about people's wealth based on what we see. Things like the cars they drive, where they live, the clothes they wear. All of that goes into formulating an opinion, not based in fact, about how well off we think they are. In summary, net worth is the measure that cuts through all that minutia and gives a clear picture of just how well off you are financially. So how do we calculate net worth? Well, if you can add and subtract, I've got good news. You can calculate net worth. The formula for net worth is net worth equals assets minus liability. So what are these things? Assets are just things of value that you own. This could be things like cash, your house, stocks, personal property. I mean, you name it. If it has value and it's something that you could liquidate potentially and turn into cash, then it's an asset. To start calculating your own net worth, begin by just adding up all the assets you own. Now, you may not track everything. Personally, I don't include cars because they're a depreciating asset. Their value is always dropping. There's other things that are just so minuscule in value, it's not really worth it. And a lot of people also don't calculate their house and their net worth. Personally, I do. I calculate it with and without. And the reason is, you don't generally sell your house while you're still alive. Most people die still owning their home because you gotta live somewhere, right? And that's why some people don't include it in their net worth calculation. To me, it is a part of the picture, so you should include it, but I'll leave that up to you. All right, next up is liabilities. This is all the debts that you have. This could be your mortgage, car loans, credit card debt, student loan debt, any of that kind of stuff. Add it all up to get your total liability. All right, after you have all your assets and all your liabilities calculated, just take those liabilities, subtract it from your assets, and voila, you have your net worth. Now, there are a lot of ways you can track it. Some people do this annually, like at the end of or beginning of the year. Personally, I have a spreadsheet in Excel that's got a lot of formulas built into it. Anytime I update account balances, I automatically update my net worth as well. I also recommend that you track that number, whatever it is. It can be fun to look back and see how far you've come and serve as a real motivational tool to keep you going. All right, so once you've calculated that number, you might be wondering, what should my net worth be? Is this a good net worth? Is it a bad net worth? Am I in line with my peers? Well, to help you understand that better, we've included a table, and this is the median net worth for people in various age brackets. Now, this information comes from the Federal Reserve, so it's a trustworthy source, but it is 2019 data. They should release this again in 2023, They haven't done that yet. I'm sure they're just waiting for me to publish this video and then they'll send out an update. So instead of waiting for them, I've just factored inflation to the numbers in the table. And you can see once again, we've included a column for average net worth and one for median net worth. We typically do that because they're so drastically different. A lot of people just assume an average is a good, clear indicator of what someone should have or what the normal is, but that's not true. You can't really go very far below zero. But on the other hand, there are a lot of very wealthy people out there who skew the numbers way high when you calculate averages. Overall, we feel like median is a better way to gauge financial wellness. I also want to point out that Americans are carrying more debt in 2023 than they were in 2019, so it's possible that the numbers aren't as good in 2023 as they were then. We'll just have to wait on the new Fed data to find out. Now that you've seen net worth by age, let's also look at it by education level. As you might expect, education does play a big role in overall net worth. So the message from this table is very clear. Stay in school. Also, if you do go to college, you might as well see it through to the very end. If you got a kid who's on the fence about finishing school, maybe you can show them this chart to give them a little motivation. Finally, we know geography plays a little bit of a role in net worth. So we pulled median net worth for every state in the table listed on the screen. There's not a whole lot that's really surprising here. Some of the states you would expect to be a higher median net worth where there's a higher cost of living. There were a couple of outliers. Montana and South Dakota probably had the highest net worth, highest median net worth based on cost of living. I was also surprised to see how low median net worth was in Washington, D.C. I mean, I'm sure it's a very expensive place to live. But I'm thinking that there's probably some error in either the way the data was collected or reported in that case. Hey there, if you find this video interesting, if I could get you to click the like and subscribe buttons below, that really helps our channel to grow, helps us reach more people and teach them about personal finance. All right, so now we've talked about net worth by age, we've talked about net worth by your education level, we've talked about net worth by where you live. But what does it mean? What is a good net worth anyway? Well, according to Charles Schwab's 2023 Modern Wealth Survey, most Americans feel that $2.2 million is the net worth number you would need to be considered wealthy. And that's also a very subjective number. The number you actually need is really dependent on what you'll spend. In order to really gauge your progress, you need to know what your goals are. And since your goals are unique to you, this makes identifying an accurate net worth goal number a little more difficult. In addition to the Charles Schwab $2.2 million number we just gave you, there's some other tools and resources out there you could use to kind of gauge where you should be headed toward net worth. Our first one comes from Fidelity. Fidelity, as you know, is a large investment company. And they released this table several years ago that shows a multiplier for what you should multiply your annual income by to know what you should have saved for retirement. Now, retirement savings is not exactly net worth, but it's pretty close. You can see in the table it goes from age 30 all the way up to 67. From 1 times your annual salary all the way up to 10x. Now, I don't really know how they came up with these numbers. What I do know is 10x at 67 seems very low to me. I can only guess that they're assuming you'll have Social Security or other types of income in addition to your retirement savings, and I certainly hope so, because even if you only spent 80% of your pre-retirement income, you would draw down the balance of your retirement savings very quickly if you only had 10 times your annual spending. All right, the next tool is the 4% rule. We've referenced this before. The 4% rule came out of the Trinity study that was done in the late 90s. Basically what it showed is that if you began withdrawing around 4% of your total portfolio's value when you started retirement, and did that adjusting for inflation and changing costs over the course of 30 years, you would have a very high probability rate of success that you would not outlive your money. Now, the reciprocal of 4% is 25. You could just take 25, multiply it times the amount of money you expect to spend in retirement to have a goal to hit. So for example, let's say you want to spend $100,000 a year in retirement. You would need a $2.5 million portfolio to support that, because $100,000 is 4% of $2.5 million. And bear in mind that 4% rule assumed that you'd have a 30-year retirement. If you retire earlier, you should probably assume a lower withdrawal rate, say 3.5%, 3%, depending on your age. That way you improve your odds of success. All right, our last tool is called FireCalc. And if you like accurate projections, this is the app for you. So FireCalc is a Monte Carlo simulator that basically allows you to input lots of variables: cash flow, Social Security income, rates of return, pensions, all those sorts of things into this very large complex calculator. And then it runs basically the last 120 years of market returns against that portfolio and determines how often your portfolio would have lasted through your expected life. And while the past is no guarantee for future success, running a century's worth of scenarios is a pretty good way to stress test your retirement portfolio. In fact, if you go to a certified financial planner and ask them to run projections about your retirement, they're probably going to use a Monte Carlo analysis at some point in that plan. Now, as you run these numbers, you'll get results that show success rates of 50, 70, 80, all the way up to 100% if you want. At the very least, you're going to want something in the 90s. You just don't want to take chances of running out of money in retirement. Now, the app is free, but there is an opportunity to make a donation, which you should do if you can. To pay for a Monte Carlo simulation from a financial planner would probably cost you several $100s at least. Wrapping up, knowing your net worth is a really important way to gauge your financial health. It cuts through a lot of the minutia and confusion and gets right to the heart of the matter. Now, we have lots of information on our website about how you can assess your own financial health. It's smartandmoney.com. We're also available through the social media channels on your screen. In the description below, we'll provide a link to the written form of this video, which is on our website. As always, we're so thankful for your interest in our videos. Thank you for watching. God bless and take care.